Hi, I'm Arielle, and I just wanted to start off with that video. That was actually made over a year ago now, and I was sort of watching it last night, and there's that last line that they sort of put at the end, and it's "let's keep this going." And when we first started the Abacus, we had absolutely no idea that it would become what it's become today. When I saw this topic, collaborate, come up, I just felt this massive affinity with it straight away. And I just got really excited about it because of working here, but also because actually my job is working at Promo Cymru. So Promo Cymru work as a collaboration on this space with some local artists. And Promo Cymru is a social enterprise, and we work to basically help communities and people to create positive change. Now that is massively broad. And I was sort of stressing quite a lot about how was I going to explain right at the beginning of my talk what Promo Cymru do, because all of us struggle all the time to actually pin it down. I actually did an exercise with my colleagues and asked them sort of to do an elevator pitch. And everybody comes out with different things and different experiences of the organisation. But then, interestingly, when I said to people, okay, what is it that underpins all of our work? What is the way that we work? And when we ask this question, everybody comes out with the same thing. And what underpins all of the things that we do at Promo Cymru is collaboration. And this is actually our strapline, and it's make it happen together. And we've been working in cooperation for over 30 years. So we have lots of different projects. The main things that I do is work on communication, so helping people to access services better, helping communities to be able to actually have a voice and have a say, and helping services to be able to communicate better with their audiences. And then we have things like the Abacus, and you'd be forgiven for thinking, well, how does that actually fit in with all of this? What's the relationship? And so really what I want to sort of talk about today, through telling the story of the Abacus and how it came about, is actually how the principles that underlie how we develop this and how we develop all of our projects actually could work on anything. And there's three sort of main things that I really feel that I want to get across. And the first one is that it's who you're collaborating with and actually working with your audience. So actually, the Abacus is run by its audience, and that's probably why it's successful. The second thing is about how to really listen. So we're all guilty of sort of thinking that, you know, we get into our jobs and, well, I know best, I'm a designer, I'm this, you know, this is how it should be, this is cool. And actually, you know, how much do we really, really listen? And I think that's a massively important thing. So I want to talk about that as well. And finally, I want to ask the question, why? And it's because when Sarah and I were having a chat, and Creative Mornings, like Sarah mentioned, is similar to the Abacus. It's a voluntary movement. Everybody who gets involved does it for free. Not just for free, it actually costs you. It costs you money, you know, and it's time and it's energy and it's a lot of stress. So like, why do people do these things? And so I want to address that as well. Let's hope this clicker works. Okay, so a little bit about the history of this space. So we were approached by some local artists called the Modern Alchemists. These guys, basically a couple, Sam and Helen, they're responsible for the Empty Walls project that you see all over the city, and it's actually their exhibition that's in here at the moment. First time in a year they've actually put on their own exhibition here because they've been working hard to provide a space to put on other people's. So they came to us and we'd worked on a project before, and they said, I want to put on an exhibition. And we found this really, really cool space in the centre of town. And myself and my chief executive sort of turned up here. And again, we had to like sign the contract there and then. They had their exhibition in 3 weeks. Please, please help us. And we walked in here, and similar to maybe what you saw on the video, it's an old bus ticket office. It was just carpeted floors, and it just looked like an office. And they had just had this vision, and they were really sort of like, we've got to do this. So we did it. And it's amazing actually to work somewhere where we've just made that decision to go for it. Because actually, if you'd thought about it, and if you'd written it down, there's absolutely no way. There's no way you would have done it. And I'm so glad that we did. You know, it's just such a massive thing to manage and to be part of that actually you wouldn't have done it. And since that, the space has just grown and grown and grown. And it's grown off the back of what people want to do here. So people come in and they're like, I'm a photographer. And okay, brilliant. They set up a photography studio. And we've had the same with music, we've had the same with recording, we have hula hoop, we have green city workshops, we have just this abundance of stuff. And it's all just people coming in and saying, I want to do something. And it's just grown to something we wouldn't even imagine. We now have 8 resident artist studios upstairs. We have a business running from here. And again, it was like, when the business came, it's Fizzy Events, they sort of came to us and we weren't so sure. I was pretty more sure because I really love that idea of like mixing business and having a bit more of an incubator centre. But people were, well, you know, is it artistic? Is it like part of this? And actually they've been brilliant because they, for example, can contribute in different ways. Like they get our Wi-Fi, they bought us a fridge, you know, so everybody's like able to have an input in how they, you know, in actually making the building work. And every single thing that you see and everything you saw in that video was done by volunteers. And some volunteers work over 30 hours a week here. And it's just amazing. A lot of the furniture you see is people just come and bring it in. A lot of the things are made out of wooden pallets and it's just all, you know, it's just all happening all the time. So the first thing that I was sort of talking about is that it's your audience, isn't it? So our audience actually run the Abacus. It's complete collaboration. And when I picked this picture, this is actually sort of watching a art auction that was happening here. And it was cool because last night I was having a look and I was thinking about our audience. And actually this person here who's looking in, that's actually Sam. So he's one of the Modern Alchemists. And I think that's quite a cool shot because these really are the people who use the space, but also the people that completely contribute and run the space. And this is some of the setup. We've just had so many different things happen here and so many really like magical stuff. We had a big fundraiser and I mean, at the moment, we're sort of just about balancing our books. No staff time comes out of this. So even as Promo Cymru, we volunteer like my time in the finance and things like that to keep it sort of going. And we've managed to make enough money to keep the doors open in terms of like paying for any of the overheads we have. But we don't have sort of anything left over to sort of pay anyone. So we had this big fundraiser because our books were looking a bit down, and everybody got involved, even to the point we had like circus performers come in and they did it all for nothing. We had somebody from Milgie's, Becky, make a massive curry and come in and sell it all and didn't even ask us for the price of the ingredients. And I think this is the thing when you do something like this, that everybody wants to be part of it. Just flicking through some pictures, we have lots of different events here, and it just sort of grows and grows. This is the print house, and they came to our fundraiser and they offered to sort of print us loads of t-shirts to sell, and in return then we gave them space for an exhibition. And these are just some of the things that are going on. And this guy actually, I think it's him, he's a window cleaner, and before he sort of had ever come to the Abacus, he'd heard about us, and I think he'd heard about us through his neighbour or something. And I was at the desk one day, and he just sort of came in with all his gear, and he just said, "Oh, I heard you're all volunteers, so I'm going to start cleaning your windows." And I love that story, and stories like that happen all the time. And you just think it's so special to be part of something where you just get the best out of people. It's a big piano piece, and as you can see, it's really full. It's become like a really popular place. So I feel like the Abacus works because it is about sort of really listening, because it's listening to what people want, it's listening to what the community want, and it's actually putting on with the community. I find this like a really interesting topic because it's throughout the rest of our projects at Promo Cymru, it's like that as well. We get asked a lot, what's the product going to be at the end? And we're sort of like, we don't know. So we're designing something, and because that first process is all about consultation, it's all about actually finding out what is going to be most needed, people ask us all the time because they get sort of anxious, but what's it going to be? What's it actually going to be? And the answer is we don't know. Because if you really listen, things will happen that you wouldn't even imagine. I did a course last year I did a postgraduate certificate in leadership, and it was one of the most inspiring courses that I did because I read and learnt about loads of stuff that backed this up, that actually backs up these concepts. David Kelly, he wrote a book called Creative Confidence, and he runs IDEO. I don't know if you've heard of IDEO. And it's a big innovation product centre in the Silicon Valley. And they design like the most amazing and groundbreaking things. And what he talks about is this having to have such open ears. And he does this thing called design thinking. And that's all about collaboration. So it's like, he says, you get one person with an idea, and then you get someone else, and someone else. And these are all different people. So one of them could be a mechanic, one of them's a doctor, one of them's a designer. And he gets them all together, and you develop the idea. And he said, because one mind would never get to the place that you get to in the end. And this is his whole concept is based around this. And I think I've got time to tell you a quick story that he tells in one of his books. And it's basically about these students who were tasked with creating an incubator bed for babies in the developing world that was cheaper because they cost about 20,000, and they couldn't, lots and lots of babies were dying prematurely because they were born too small or premature, and they can't keep themselves warm. And it's terrible that that's happening. So they said, right, these beds are just far too expensive. How do we reduce the cost? So these students went over to India and they started spending time with the families in the hospitals. And they found that in the hospital, there was loads of these beds not even in use. And so they sort of came back and they sort of said, well, you've got the beds, so why don't you use them? And the parents said, we can't get to hospital because it's 30 miles away. So we have our babies at home. And so the students were suddenly faced with not making a bed that was actually cheaper, but we now need to solve this problem. And they made this baby grow that you could actually put a heater, you could heat it up on the stove, this little heater, and they put it into this baby grow, and they've now developed this product that saves thousands and thousands of babies. And it's so cheap. And they would never have done that if they hadn't listened and they kept trying to reproduce this same thing. And I found that a really, really inspiring story. Okay, so the structure of the abacus. So how does it sort of work here? Well, the structure, I picked this picture. Don't read into it too much because I don't really massively know what's going on there. And they're sort of working together, and then there's a guy with, I think he's, I don't know, got some bones or something on sticks. That might be a good representation of it. It's mad, the structure here. It's there, you know, I wrote in the bio for this that it's very little bureaucracy, and that really isn't. And actually, now after being here a year, we are realising that, you know, there needs to be more, because it is like anything can happen at any time, which is brilliant and lovely, but it's really difficult. You know, you come in, it's changed. Who's got responsibility for this? Whose job is it to do that? It's madness. And as lovely as that is, and it is, it's challenging. It's really, really challenging. And things happen, you know, we've got, although it's completely partnership, actually the structure is that Promo Cymru have the legal responsibility. So we're the people who've signed for the building, we're the people who are responsible for all people's safety. And so we run it, like, of course we do, it's a partnership, it's completely developed in partnership, but actually the buck stops with us if anything happens, which makes us really nervous and makes the board really nervous, of course. And we've had things happen here. Now, I don't know if you know, somebody got locked in a vault over there. And I mean, talk about the worst, scariest thing that could happen. It's like your worst nightmare, and that happened here. And that was really, really scary. And that we had precautions in place, of course we did. We'd written a risk assessment, you know, and you think, oh, you've written a risk assessment. But it really made me realise, actually, these things, they have to be implemented. And you can't just, it's that thing, okay, great, we can do the health and safety, but everybody has to abide by it, because we're not here all the time, and we can't resource that. So how do you do it so that everybody can be creative and facilitate all this amazingness, but at the same time, keep everybody safe and make sure that people are actually following procedures? You know, I know it doesn't look nice when there's a fire extinguisher maybe on a wall that you want to put a piece of art, but actually these are the boundaries. And then you start feeling like you're putting barriers up, and you think, we're trying to help people, but now we're like putting barriers up, but we have to put barriers up because this is going to help you ultimately. And it's always that going on. And we are looking at our future, and we're looking at how to sort of restructure it and maybe become its own independent community interest company, where we as Promo Cymru would be part of that, and so would the Modern Alchemists, and so would other people, and, you know, to give it more independence. But these things are definitely, if we want to continue into the future, these are the sort of things that have to change. And I suppose the challenge there is how, you know, do you keep all this and at the same time start to put in these roles and these structures that are much more conventional? What happens if somebody's paid? Does that mean that suddenly no volunteer's not going to clean the toilets anymore, or not going to pick up something that they see? Because at the moment there's no one to do it, so you've got to do it. You know, there's nobody who says that's not my job. And that sort of works really well, but then at the same time, sometimes nothing gets done because it's nobody's job. And just finally then, I think it brings us really sort of nicely onto why, because it is a massive amount of work, and I know for the CreativeMornings team the same, and there's so many amazing movements that are happening, and why, you know, why is it that people do it? I think here it's definitely that feeling of a sense of community and being part of something. Some people obviously do it because, you know, for their careers or to be able to explore things. Another really amazing sort of inspirational writer is Daniel Pink. And I think you might have maybe read some of his stuff or seen it before. He does this thing on Drive. And he talks about how, you know, money, yeah, is a motivator in terms of you need to get paid enough to live. However, things are much bigger motivators than that. And that sense of purpose, is a bigger motivator. And that sense of mastery and getting good at something is a bigger motivator. And that sense of autonomy, so being self-driven. And actually these things are perhaps why, outside of our work, you know, we do things. I mean, you search on Google and you find people who've made a video about exactly how to do one tiny, how do you change this, you know, part of my dishwasher, and somebody's made a whole video on it, written a blog about it, and they're sharing it, and you think, you know, why are they doing that? And it's like we all get involved. And actually another quick story that Dan Pink tells in one of his videos is he says that he said, oh, imagine if I went to my economics teacher at school and I said, I'm going to get these really experienced people, really professional people, and they're going to give up to 30 hours a week, all of their time to develop something. And when they develop that thing, they're going to give it away for free. And he says that his economics teacher would just be like, wow, what a great business idea that sounds. And then he says, well, what about things like Linux? What about things like Wikipedia? Why are people doing these things? And so finally, I just want to end it on, Sarah sort of asked me before I did this talk, she said, you know, speakers often talk a little bit about them and how they got involved. And my first thought was, well, it's because it's my job. And then, you know, it didn't take me long to sort of have a think about where I come from. And I was actually born, not in this one, but yeah, I was actually born in a commune in West Wales. And so I think that sense of community is really, really strong. And funnily, this next picture is a picture of a new van that I bought recently with my boyfriend. And actually that's going to become our new home. So we're doing that up at the moment to explore this sort of different type of life. And I think that, you know, so being here, and I think sometimes those things are what you feel when you feel sort of part of something and part of a community. And so hopefully I've managed to sort of talk about the Abacus and sort of, you know, but those three things that I really want hopefully you to go away with is that it's like using your audience, you know, they're the people that use whatever it is you're doing. So they are massively important to be involved, really listening, and also sort of knowing that there's got to be something in it for everyone. So why? There has to be something in it for people. There has to be a purpose. And that's it.